There's gonna be a talking head video today that's probably gonna seem like it's being done by either a drunk or someone high on drugs because I am tired. I have spent, I don't even know how much time. Anyway, I stayed up pretty much all night last night, finishing up the Terry Crews build, which gets delivered in 2 days. You guys will, of course, have a video on that hopefully next week. But if my eyes are bloodshot and my train of thought just seems to derail really easily, at least that's why.
So what you think?
You know, I'll be honest. I'm kind of impressed by its proportions.
I know, right?
All right, but let me show you something here. Ugh. I kind of like the thin ones.
But this one is about form factor.
Yeah, but mine can fit in tight spaces.
With girth, you can open tight spaces. It's like a master key.
Whether you like thick or thin, the ITX lineup from Fractal Design is sure to have something that tickles your fancy. Remember, it's not the size that matters. It's all about how you use it.
No, it's definitely the girth.
No thinness.
Girth, dude.
Thinness.
Girth.
There's no contest.
No, there's contest. It's girth.
By now you've probably heard that Ryzen 5 is launched. Unfortunately, this video today is not about Ryzen 5. Even though I have it, I haven't had a chance to even take it out of the box yet because I've been so busy with the other project that I just mentioned. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna tell you what the last 30 days have been like using Ryzen as my daily driver. Now, although the previous video about that went up on the 20th, since I said I'm gonna be using it for 30 days, I was actually already 10 days into that 30-day challenge, having moved into the studio on the 10th of March, and it's now the 11th of April, so I've got a good 30 days base of what it was like using Ryzen for 30 days. I'll go ahead and say the 3 things I'm gonna really focus on this video are the video live streaming, video creation and content creation, editing, things like that, and of course, gaming. If you're into things like compiling, development work, and virtualization, I don't do any of that in my day-to-day workflow, so I don't have any experience to talk about with that. That'd be more like something you'd want to ask Wendell about. So with that out of the way, and the fact that this is just a talking head video, feel free to minimize this so that my face isn't inconveniencing the pixels on your monitor. Trust me, you wouldn't want any stuck pixels because of this face that only a mother could love. Now let's talk about live streaming real quick. Unfortunately, when I did my live stream, and you guys can watch the replay here, or at least some of it, go sample it so you can see what I'm about to reference here. A lot of people just didn't get it. I think people failed to realize, although it mentioned this till I was blue in the face, I think a lot of people just didn't realize I don't use a capture card. I was not capturing something happening on a different machine. I was capturing what was happening on that machine as it was happening. I was live encoding 10 megabit per second H.264, 1080p 60 FPS on the same machine I was gaming on a game like Ghost Recon's Wildlands, which is extremely taxing of any system. So being able to maintain 60 FPS was an extreme chore for any CPU, and Ryzen 1800X at 4 gigs did that for me. Now, of course, we had some low FPS at times. We had a couple of dips down into the 40s, well, a few dips down into the 40s, but that's honestly not that surprising given how taxing Ghost Recon is, and there's still a lot of optimization that needs to take place. And optimization in Ryzen over the last 30 days has been happening, and things are getting better. And in only 30 days' time, it's not that bad. I would have liked to have seen that happen before it launched, but the fact that we're seeing it is a good thing. Now, I moved on to GTA 5, which we know is extremely CPU bound and still was able to maintain a 60 FPS average. Now, fortunately, again, we did have some lows down into the mid 30s on that one, depending on what was happening in the game. But the important thing to realize on these games is I was running them at their highest presets. At least in Ghost Recon's, I had turf effects turned off because that wrecks any GPU. But these were being rendered 10 megabit per second, as I said, 60 FPS live encoding on these games that are demanding at their highest presets. That is something you could never dream of doing with an FX CPU, so that shows how far AMD has come. And try doing that on a 7700K. Now, what about content creation? Well, I'm gonna shamelessly plug another video of mine that actually did pretty well. A lot of people watched about using Ryzen for things like Adobe Premiere Pro. I had no problems. I would be hard-pressed if you had a blind taste test of what it was, if you had a 6900K system set up next to a Ryzen system and had a sheet over them, and then just had a mouse, a keyboard, and a timeline and said, edit in this timeline and try to identify which tower is which, I wouldn't be able to be honest with you. In fact, when it comes down to encoding the exact same timeline as you guys saw in that video, it's about a 2.5 minute difference over the course of, what was it, 11-minute video, I think it was. I could tell you right now, those 2 minutes, some would argue, over the course of a year and how many videos you render, how much time that adds up to, you're like, that's just wasted time. No, I don't look at it that way, because while the video's encoding, I don't just sit there twiddling my thumbs waiting for it to be done. I multitask and I do other things while that's rendering, so it wouldn't affect my workflow. Now, if it took like 50% longer for Ryzen to render, then yeah, I'd probably notice that. But I can tell you over the last 30 days, I have not been sitting here going, I miss my Intel machine, I miss my Intel machine. I've actually been perfectly content using Ryzen over the last 30 days. Now, of course, we are talking about the 1800X though. For 500 bucks, it should be a good experience. It is the fastest of the Ryzen chips currently. Now, yeah, you can overclock 1700 and 1700X and get near that performance, but I'm just, for the sake of simplicity, it's the fastest chip that they currently offer. Now, the thing about that video is it wasn't very crazy when it comes to the timeline. A lot of the videos you guys have seen have had heavy color correction, especially since I shoot in S-Log here on my FS5. There's a ton of post-production that has to be done on these videos, a ton of color correction, which can add a lot of render time to any CPU. And I'm proud to say that the render time on the Ryzen has stayed right in line with the Intel offering, like I showed you in that video. So it hasn't been noticeable to me. Now, it's a little bit noticeable when it comes to something like the 6950X, because that's 20 threads of processing power. But when it comes to encoding on the 5960X compared to the Ryzen, it hasn't been noticeable. So I can confidently recommend the Ryzen 7 CPUs, any of the three, to content creators. Now, what about gaming? I think most people would agree that using an 1800X for the sole purpose of gaming wouldn't exactly be the most efficient use of funds. But I can tell you right now that gaming on it, with two Titan X Maxwell cards here that are pushing 2 years old now at this point, it's more noticeable that I'm using older cards than it is that I'm using an AMD CPU versus an Intel CPU. Yeah, I say the Titan X Maxwells are old or dated. They're 2 years old now based on an older core, and it's definitely noticeable. The GPU cores are moving extremely fast these days, especially with NVIDIA's timeline. But gaming on them in the ultra-wide QHD 3440 by 1440p panel behind me hasn't been a problem. As you guys know, as resolution scales higher, it puts more of a load on the GPU than it does on the CPU. So again, no issues or no complaints there. In fact, I found myself wanting to kick my own ass for putting the Titan X Maxwell cards in there and being lazy and using cards that already had blocks on them, than putting my 1080s in there, Pascal 1080s, because they're a lot more power efficient and just as fast. Because that's why you guys see the side panel open here. They get really hot, and that Evolve case, unfortunately, is not very well engineered when it comes to airflow, especially for water cooling and radiators and stuff. Yeah, I find myself taking the top off and the side panel off often to keep the GPUs cool, not the CPU, but the GPUs. And speaking of CPU though, it really sucks that AMD decided to do the whole 20-degree offset, because in none of the marketing material and none of the reviewer's guide that they sent, I checked and triple checked after you guys pointed it out, mentioned that there's a damn 20-degree offset in there to make it more consistent with the temperatures of the 1700 when it comes to the fan profiles. That's stupid. It just left people like me going, why the hell is it running so damn hot? How am I getting 85C on water? Which then, of course, left the jokes of, looks like AMD's just another furnace. No, it's actually running pretty cool. Overclocked at 65C. No complaints there. Anyway, that's just a rant. I have no idea why they did that. And AMD, just stop it. But anyway, to wrap up this Talking Bobblehead video, from the perspective of a content creator and a gamer, I have no problems recommending this CPU to someone who does both. I would probably, if you're purely a gamer, would wait to check out what the 1500X or the 4-core 8-thread variant has to hold. I haven't been hands-on with that, and I'm sure there's tons of reviews on the internet already. I haven't watched a single one, so I'm going to be completely green and new when it comes to checking out Ryzen 5. I would probably see what those CPUs hold in terms of gaming, than blowing money on something like a $400 or $500 CPU if you're only gaming. It doesn't make sense to spend that much on your CPU, especially when 8 threads is more than enough for gaming, and it will be for a while. Anyway, I hope this video has had some meaningful substance to someone out there trying to decide what to do or maybe on the fence about Ryzen. I have not been in a rush to go out and create the new studio PCs. Like I said, I've got several 6900Ks to use. I've got another 6950X to use. I'm doing some more builds for the studio, another centerpiece boutique build like Skunkworks put to use here at the studio, and have a big over-the-top unnecessary PC as another centerpiece of the channel. I have not felt the need to run out and do those. I just haven't, because this PC has done a phenomenal job at keeping up with the aggressive workflow that I need from day to day. Now, we've got multiple systems to build here in the studio. We'll be building some Ryzen systems for display, and of course, Nick needs his system because he's going full-time next month. so he's gonna need a system to sit at and work at. Anyway, guys, let me know if this video has helped you in some way. This has just been one person's perspective and experience in using this now for the last month. It's actually been nice. It's been really nice. I could have never done this with FX. I probably would have thrown myself off the second floor balcony if I had to go back to using FX with the aggressive workflow that I have now with running this channel. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.